Welcome to the Work and Pulleys exhibit. I will be updating this slide so we'll say work and pulleys. Um, what we have here is the concept of work, how work can be, there's a trade-off between the force and the distance, and how pulleys help us capitalize on that. And then over here there's the experiment. So let's dig into the concept slide. And we start out with a story. Uh, the boss wants to lift a very heavy weight up to 10 feet, but the worker is not going to be able to lift 150 pounds. So over here we introduce the concept of work equals force times distance. So if you increase the distance, now you have a smaller force. I'm going to change that table or might remove it because what's going on with the experiment is that the distance is really following the ratios, 1 to 4 as in the experiment, but for some reason the weight is about 1 to 2.5. I think there's a lot of loss there. I don't really have the answer. So but the kids could definitely feel a difference in the force. Over here, concept of pulleys. So we show the 1-to-1 ratio on the left, before picture and after picture. You see how the rope has been pulled the distance of that blue arrow, and the box has moved the distance of the red arrow. On the right, you have a 1-to-4 ratio, and the after shows how you pull 4 times as much to move the box the same amount. But by pulling it 4 times as far, the weight goes down. Okay, and then on the left pane, there will be instructions on the experiment itself. We want the kids to first try lifting the weight at the 1-to-1 setup. They may not be able to, but that's okay. If they can, measure how far they pulled the rope. There's a red mark that indicates where the rope essentially starts. That would be my datum, or where I would mark off 0. And you measure the distance from there. And then they can repeat the same process on the 1-to-4 ratio setup. It's the same bucket, same mass, so they should feel a difference in the weight. You should also definitely feel a difference in the distance of rope that they've had to pull. And then I think question number 3, if they can do the math, that'd be great. They can compare the distance of rope pulled and get a 1-to-4 ratio. Number 4 is kind of like asking them, which do they prefer? I mean, sometimes if you're really strong, it's easier to just lift it all in one shot. This is the pulley experiment. What we're comparing here is the 1-to-1 ratio pulley versus the 1-to-4 ratio pulley. With the 1-to-1 ratio pulley, you're pulling all the weight. On the 1-to-4 ratio pulley, it's a lot lighter, but you're pulling 4 times as much rope. So on both of these, we have scales, we have identical buckets, and identical weights. Let's put it right in there. And each of these scales has a digital readout so the kids can compare the weight from this side versus that side. They also have a marker here so they can compare how much line they have to pull to lift the bucket, say from here up to the pulleys. I measured it. It is a 1-to-4 ratio. The weights are a little bit off, and that's mostly because of inefficiencies. So not something we really want to get into. Overall, let's talk safety. So when the kids pull, you want them to pull down, even if it means going like this. You don't want to pull this way, away from the frame, because this whole frame could tip over. it's pretty light. It's not gonna really hurt anyone, but we don't want that to happen. Other than that, it's pretty foolproof. The kids get to go in there and try and compare. I would have them take turns, do one bucket and then the next bucket. So here's a little tutorial on that scale. It's the same one we're using for the car as well as the pulleys. Essentially, we're gonna turn it on, and then when it reads 0, we're gonna start pulling the weight on this little hook or the rope that's provided. And it'll start going up. Once it settles, it should read lock and beep. May take a while. Oh, there it goes. Yep. And then when you release it, yeah, it still holds. If you hit on off again, it should clear. Yep. And then if it's at 0 and you hit on off, it'll turn off. If you get blank screen, then hit on off again and we can repeat the process.